feels like that separation, that hardening
Yeah.
of my heart and then therefore theirs.
Yeah. Yeah. And that imposition. Yeah. It's really imposing.
And I imagine that separation and power over
Mm.
a child that I think we all do in some ways, it feels like that will perpetuate whatever the child is struggling with or their experience. Once there's that disconnect from my soft heart and their soft heart, it feels like, in my experience, that kind of keeps happening and becomes how we're relating.
Yeah, you've noticed that it just keeps repeating. It's looping. It's seeking a resolution, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of parents that I speak to, again, are wondering, like, what is wrong with my child? What do you say to that?
Wow, yeah. What is wrong with my child because they are behaving badly? They are immature and impulsive, and their needs aren't being met, I suspect. And so there's nothing wrong with them, actually. They are just showing us, trying to get their needs met. They are showing us that something isn't right, and they just need our help.
It makes me think of, and it's maybe the same kind of theme, but boundaries versus meeting their needs. And then like boundaries and meeting their needs, or boundaries as part of meeting their needs. I feel like there's a subtle difference between those things.
So there's a feeling like boundaries and meeting their needs are a little bit incompatible? Is that?
Yeah. At times, I think when parents, myself and people I speak to, get into that conflict mode where we're being maybe a bit more authoritarian under the banner of boundaries, that there's this kind of separation where then the child's trying to get their needs met in ways that are not ideal. And it keeps perpetuating that kind of cycle. I don't think I'm being very clear, but
I wonder if an example could help here, because there's many things we could unpack, like what are their actual needs versus something they want. Those can get confused. Yeah, but I'm not sure if you could think of an example of where not meeting their needs isn't ideal.
I guess I think of an example like when a child, say they want their parent with them all the time or don't want to go to school because they don't want to leave their parent. There's obviously a need there for the child, and yet there's a necessity of being able to separate from each other.
Yeah, go to work but they might genuinely be needing closeness.
Yeah, I guess it makes me think we don't necessarily have to meet their need the way they're asking for it to be met by staying home from school, but locating, they seem like they need more closeness. How can I give that to them in a way that works?
Yeah, and still get to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds, and I loved how you landed on your own answer there.
Yeah. I'm curious about the play, the rest. Can we go back to that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I also wanted to go back to kicking the wall, and we did the thought experiments with the two, seeing them through the different lenses. Because I was really curious to take it a little bit further about when we looked at them through the softer lens, and you connected with how you would then feel towards them. But then what would you do about the kicking? Or, what response flows on from that towards the thing that we actually do want to stop and set a boundary around? I'm not sure if you want to open that up or speak about that.
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
So, I guess if in the moment I can stay with a soft heart and seeing them as a child whose brain isn't properly developed and that they don't want to be kicking the wall, that then I can maybe lead in a different direction. That I have this feeling in parenting that when I'm solid in myself as an adult and, I use words like aligned and centered and grounded, that is actually quite easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You do pretty well when you're in that state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm not, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I do my bad parenting.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I've been finding lately is that I need to really maintain, and for me it's through meditation, that I need to maintain that solidity, and then I can lead easily.
Yeah.
And my child naturally follows and
Yes.
relaxes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, still has meltdowns and whatever, but they're
Yes.
shorter and more tolerable and easily met.
Yeah.
In that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess I'm thinking of parents who are listening who are feeling like they don't really know how to do that, or I don't know, I just have this strong sense of the dilemma, which I also sometimes feel, but the dilemma of parents of when my child is completely out of control, it can feel like the fastest and most effective thing to do is more disciplinary and shutting it down.
Yeah.
What can those parents call on or try to find in themselves in those moments?
Maybe it would be helpful first to connect with why don't we want to do that disciplinary, harsh response, to clarify what is the cost of that, it might work, on the surface. So are we clear about why we don't want that?
Yeah, why don't we want to do that?
Yeah. Well,
what happens when we do that?
What happens when we do that, So if we imagine being a child and we're having a really hard time, and we're doing these things, thrashing around, And what happens if we imagine now a parent and they scold us, tell us to, separate, to go into our rooms or something like that. So we're imposing separation, we're taking away the relationship, in other words. And we're angry, we're, speaking, yelling at them. What sort of feeling does that bring up in us, if we're on the receiving end of that? Feeling, shame, sadness, even anger, I can connect with if I imagine being that child, anger at not being understood and held the way I really need.
Yeah. Judged.
Yeah.
Like, they think I'm wrong.
And then in some capacity probably believing that as well, because, our parents and the adults around us are godlike and so powerful, we can't really afford to question them. Yeah. So that becomes part of our story as well. Yeah.
And becomes part of, how we see ourselves in relation to the world and how we view our own emotions. This emotion is not safe because it causes separation from my parent. And then we likely grow to feel, anytime we feel that emotion as an adult, oh, this emotion is not okay. Yeah. I'm going to be judged or shamed, rejected for this.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, a lot of the work that we're doing in therapy with adults is helping adults feel and accept all of their emotions, right?
Yes, very much. Exactly. Yeah.
What do you advise parents to do when their child is having some really big emotion that is hard for the parent to tolerate and they're behaving in a way that is not allowed?
Yeah. So I advise to try and connect with that lens, first of all. I think it's important the way we are seeing first, before I give an example of what it might look like. Because if we have that lens, we're able to wear that lens and see them, for what's actually happening, then we can actually come up with our own authentic response that is a healthy, loving response and boundaried. So I think that's the biggest work, and that's the exciting place to get, right? Where we can trust ourselves enough to step into that role and be that person for our child. And so if you're happy to do a little thought experiment again. Can you think of how you might, respond? Otherwise, of course, I will also give an example. But if you're connecting with that.